Welcome to today's video. We're going to look at an overlooked but very powerful skill that really plays a part in our success and our achievement of goals. And that's the power of saying no, right? We often think of things like if we're going to be an achiever, we got to say yes and take every opportunity that comes our way. But the opposite is actually true. We're in a world where there's a lot of demands in our time coming from every direction, from all sorts of different people in all sorts of different aspects of our life. There's a lot of demands. So if we don't master the power of saying no, understanding what deserves a yes and what deserves a no, we're never going to be able to fulfill our potential. So you want to figure out how to say no in areas that's going to help you maintain focus, keep you on track, manage your priorities, and achieve the life that you envision. So let's explore how you can start saying no to distractions and yes to your success.
No, say no. And then I say, what the good attitude bad. It's figure out.
On this journey to achieving success and living the life that we want to live and accomplishing our goals, figuring out a balance between yeses and nos is crucial. This helps us set up boundaries. It creates filters to make sure that we're spending our time on the things that matter most on this road to success, right? It helps us make sure that our behaviors actually match our priorities. So, at the most simple level, if we've got a strong business goal that we're trying to achieve, saying no might be I'm not going to go to happy hour, I'm not going to go out tonight, I'm not going to stay up late. They're pretty obvious no's, right? That doesn't really align with what we're trying to accomplish. Not that there's not time for those sort of things. It's very important to have work-life balance, but knowing to say no to keep our priorities. But it goes deeper than that because we'll have things that come our way that seem like cool opportunities. But if they don't really help us get where we're going, even if they sound maybe like they're fun or they're promising, we've still got to be able to say no to those opportunities. So saying no is absolutely necessary. When we say no, we make sure that we're not overcommitting ourselves. We're taking better care of our time. We're making sure that we're not overwhelming with tasks that may or may not be necessary, right? We've got to learn to say no because it's never about quantity, like saying yes to everything. It's about quality. It's saying no to the things that aren't going to help us as much as the things that are. So by learning to say no, we prioritize the things that really help us out. It also helps us avoid decision fatigue, right? Because what happens is we start saying yes to everything and at some point realize we can't manage that. And now we've put ourselves in a really bad situation. So to avoid that decision fatigue, we have to know when to say no and when to say yes. But again, no really simplifies things and helps us reduce stress, right? It sounds silly, again, because type A people, like many of you, yes, 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 with the best of heart and the best of intention, but that's not the way to be successful. It's understanding how to say no. It's going to help you conserve your mental energy for essential goals, for the things that really do matter. Saying no it's a tool for self-respect, right? Think about this. A lot of us happen to be pleasers, so we're more willing to say yes even when we shouldn't. But how do you feel when that happens and all of a sudden you're doing something where you're like, man, I really should have said no to that, right? Think about that. And think about the people that are successful. Somebody that's really busy and really successful, they know how to say no. They know how to not put too much on their plate so they can stay focused on what matters most. But you've got to protect time and you've got to build boundaries if you want to stay on track for your goals. And you've got to teach others how to respect those priorities. And a key to this is clarity, right? When you actually take the time to clarify a goal, make sure it's crystal clear, and you've got mission, vision, values involved with those goals, those are what's going to help you say no, right? That becomes a decision-making tool. It lets you know what aligns with your personal and professional development, right? When you have a real good goal and a strong mission, vision, values, Anytime an opportunity arises, you can battle test it against those. And if you truly follow those established mission, vision, values, and goals, that's going to tell you whether or not you say yes or no to this. And if you say yes, then it absolutely aligns with what you're trying to accomplish. But if it doesn't, that means it's time to say no, right? The other thing with this is learn from your past mistakes. Think about the times in your past where you said yes to something and completely regretted it and realized, I should never have said yes. I should have held my ground and said no. That's going to help you build up the self confidence to say no as you move forward, right? So, reflecting on times that you should have said no when you actually said yes, that's helpful. But it also helps bring clarity so you avoid those things in the future. You want to build a lifestyle of intentionality, not just saying yes to everything that comes your way. Part of learning to say no is setting boundaries with people. The first and most obvious are, again, I think most people are kind-hearted and we care and we're social. So we tend to say yes to people when we shouldn't. So the first step in saying no is simply finding those toxic people and those toxic relationships and saying no and not letting them be a part of your social circle or your network or your business. Because again, it's one thing to be nice, but that being nice to those type of people, that's going to be a detriment to your own success. That's why we've got to learn to say no. The other thing is people that disrespect your boundaries or those people that just suck the energy and life out of you, right? That's the next tier down from those people that are really toxic. You got to learn to say no to them too, right? There's maybe a small area or small time you can allot to that, maybe some small yeses, but overall, you've got to learn to say no, especially when they're pushing your own boundaries. You respect yourself, you respect your boundaries, and you say no to those people. But you've got to maintain boundaries in your professional life and your personal life. So what that means is whether it's a coworker, family, friends, whatever it is, you make sure that you set clear boundaries and expectations, right? So they know when you're available, when you're not, what you're available for, what you're not, what you're willing to do, what you're not willing to do. It's important to set those and uphold those. You've got to enforce those. And believe it or not, even though it might sound a little harsh, it's better for you on your road to success and trying to achieve your goals. It also ends up building better relationships because people will respect that and you'll find ways to interact in ways that are appropriate for both people. So it's not a bad thing to tell no to people, right? You're basically teaching people how to treat you, right? And you'll treat them the same way. But again, you need to communicate that consistently. It's got to be clear, and that's the way it becomes effective, right? But again, when you reinforce those boundaries, you're going to cultivate a mutual level of respect that's actually going to improve relationships. Part of saying no also helps you guide your time and your energy, right? It avoids that overcommitment. I will tell you that I've been guilty of it. I'm sure many of you have. I know Sourena has, where we get ambitious, we get excited, we want to help people, we want to do things, we want to do more. So we say yes, 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 yes. And now all of a sudden we're stressed, we're overwhelmed, and we know for a fact that we can't do everything we've committed to. And that damages relationships. It also damages us personally because we feel like failures, even though what we've said yes to was an impossible load of work, right? So we want to make sure we avoid overcommitment, and that's going to protect our time and energy. Time is a precious commodity, and we've got to be very specific about where we're willing to put that time, right? So again, basically think of it this way. Say no if something doesn't align with your mission, vision, values, right? And that's going to help you maintain a work-life balance as well. And that's important, right? This saying yes mentality to everything becomes overwhelmed with work all the time. When you don't have that work-life balance, you're never going to be as effective as you think you can be. A person who has a balance, who has the appropriate relationships and social aspects and takes care of their health and their energy and nutrition and fitness and all of those things because they're taking time off work, end up better at that work. And a simple analogy is if you could work 16 hours a day, you would accomplish certain things, but there would be a diminishing return because you'd be tired, you'd be burnt, you'd be overwhelmed. But if you worked 8 hours a day and you took those other hours to make sure you were the best person you could be in your other personal relationships and your health, you would crush those 8 hours and you'd get more than you would out of 16 bad hours, right? So it's important that work-life balance, and that's about prioritizing self-care. You often hear people that say yes to everything, they overcommit, they don't take care of themselves, and they wear it as a badge of honor. Like, I can get by without any work-life balance. Well, guess what? Would you want to be a person who's getting by? Or do you want to be somebody who performs at a high level? Would you hire somebody who's like, I can get by? Or would you hire somebody that's like, I take care of myself, so I am primed and ready to go, and everything I give you will be 100% and exceed expectations, right? But you got to recognize that there has to be time to prioritize health and well-being, and a lot of that comes from saying no, right? Saying no to work things, saying no to overcommitment, right? Knowing when to say no so you can take care of yourself, because in order to be selfless and do your best, you've got to be a little selfish, and that means saying no. So part of saying no, right, is learning how to filter things out. And we spoke about this a little bit before, but it's important to reiterate that if something does not align with your goal, your vision, your mission, and your values, that is your filter system. By the way, on a side note, that's why it's important to take the time to really make your goals clear, right? To really make sure your mission, vision, values, all of those things really matter. They're not just words on paper, right? They're actually what you truly believe, what you think, what you feel, and what you want. Because when that becomes the single best filter for learning whether to say yes or say no in any situation, right? That's building a strategic yes or no framework, right? Does this align with all of those things? Then it is a strong yes. Does it not really align? Then it's a no. And by the way, here's another one. If it aligns, it's a yes. If it doesn't align, if it's a no. And if it kind of aligns, it's also a no. That's how you create a filter system, right? That's how you know how to prioritize what you're doing. But when you take the time to do that right, it is going to be a very powerful thing. Dealing with FOMO. I'm sure many of you know this term, but it's the fear of missing out. And there's a psychology behind that. But what happens with FOMO is we tend to overcommit. It doesn't allow us to say no. Think of how many times you thought about a situation and you were like, oh, I'll just do it because you were worried about what you might miss, right? I think somebody at one point made a joke about the fear of being included, right? I don't want to be included. I want to say no. I want to keep my time for myself. So there are certain situations that you need to be involved in. There are certain opportunities you need to take, right? But never take it because you're scared of what you might miss out on, right? That's how we justify saying yes when we should say no. We might look at it and use our filter system to say, this does not help us get to our goal. This does not align with our mission, vision, values. But if I don't do it, what might I be missing out on? So I'll just do it. And then all of a sudden, we'll put ourselves in a situation where we've said yes to something that we should not have said yes to, right? But we've got to just embrace the power of selective focus. And that's what this filter system helps us to do, right? You got to accept the fact that not every opportunity is for you, right? If it doesn't align with your framework, then it's a hard no. And that's hard because, again, most of us are people pleasers. We don't want to say no. We have the FOMO. There's all these things pushing us to say yes when we shouldn't, right? Or we think, you hear these quotes where like seize every opportunity that comes your way. That's not really how success happens. Again, it's back to that quality over quantity. Does this align with my values? Does it align with my goals, right? That's going to be your filter system. So as hard as it may be, that filter system, use it. Make that your most important guideline, your most important rule, and stick to it. That's going to help you say no. It's also going to help you avoid FOMO. So with this yes and no thing, since it is hard to say no, and sometimes you've got to say no, it's important to be resilient and stick to that choice. Because it's hard enough for many of us to say no to start with, but then we say no, and now we're looking over here and we're saying there's a little bit of FOMO creeping in, or maybe I should have said yes. No, you've got to have the resilience to continue to stick with that decision. As long as you made it under your framework of your mission, vision, values, and goal, and you've said no, then you need to stick with that. Stay strong in your commitment to yourself and to your goals. That means staying strong when you actually say no, right? And with that, when there are challenges, when you're second guessing or whatever, use it as an opportunity to learn, grow, personally develop, and learn from that. Continue to celebrate small wins. Reinforce your purpose during tough times. Acknowledge progress when you say no, right? We have the FOMO, which is the opposite. We're like, what could have happened if I said yes? Well, acknowledge that, man, had I not said no to that, then I wouldn't be where I'm at today. It's important to have those small wins and to recognize that. That helps you reinforce the ability and the skill of saying no. So if you want a balanced and successful life, You've got to say no. It's not about saying yes. That is not always the correct answer. Successful people, we think they just say yes to everything, and they don't. Successful people, the most successful people, are the best at saying no. They know when to not do something, when to turn down something that might be perceived as an opportunity. They know how to use their goals, mission, vision, values as a framework for decision making. And if something doesn't align with that, then it's an absolute no. So saying no is saying yes to something that is more purposeful, that leads to a fulfilling life. If you enjoyed this video and you found it helpful, and I'm sure that you did, make sure you like it, share it, and most importantly, subscribe to this channel.